A very good afternoon to you, Francis, and to our viewers at home. There's been a move, really, when you look at how this Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement came about and where they would actually like to see it in terms of accommodating the about 1.3 billion members of Africa or residents here on the African continent. It's a market of about 1.3 billion people, we are told, whereby they are going to be benefiting from this. We're already seeing a little bit of a difference in terms of the companies that are here. Some of them have already started trading under the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement, and they basically just allaying fears here and talking about the benefits that have come through for them in this space. I'm going to bring into the conversation with me now Briggette Harrington. She's coming through from Rwanda, and already you're trading under this space. Briggette, just let us in really on how has it been. You are the CEO of Igire Coffee. Welcome to the SABC.
Thank you so much. Trade has been interesting. AfCFTA, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, is in its infancy, to be perfectly honest with you, but it's moving forward. So I liken it to growing a child. The child first has to crawl before it walks, and obviously before it runs. So we're crawling, and we're getting to the point where we're learning how to walk.
Tell us about your coffee. We know very well that really there's a historical context to how this coffee is making an impact there in Rwanda, looking at the Tutsis and the Hutus and that genocide that happened over time in that country.
So in 1994, there was a Tutsi genocide that took place. And basically what came out of that was in less than, I believe it was 91 days, more than 1 million people were dead. And as a result of that, society was left mainly with women and children to fend for themselves because a lot of the men were dead and the other men were in prison. So what you'll find now happening in Rwanda is there is a focal point, and there has been for a number of years now, for 29 years, because we just celebrated the 29th anniversary of the end of the genocide. There are a lot of women doing a lot of wonderful, amazing things in Rwanda. Part of the end of the Tutsi genocide brought women together from both ethnic groups. And those women were brought together to do a number of things. Number one, they were brought together to mend their differences and to become one people again, Rwandans. The second thing that they were brought together to do was to educate, feed, take care of themselves and their children. And they did this through growing coffee. The coffee that I'm holding before me is a byproduct of that. And basically what we do, my company buys coffee from these women. We process it, we package it, and we export it to other African countries. We were also the first one to export under the Guided Trade Initiative in October of 2022. So we've basically just gotten started with the exportation of this product. And the primary focal point for even processing the coffee on the continent or in Rwanda is the fact that these women farmers, as throughout all of Africa, make a pittance by selling raw materials. And green coffee beans are raw materials. The Western world comes in, large organizations, they purchase the coffee somewhere between $5, $6 a kilo. By the time it gets to market in either Europe or in the US, that coffee is selling for between $45 and $50. Meanwhile, the people that did the heavy lifting are trying to survive on a daily basis on the pittance that they receive. So what Igire Coffee is about is transforming the lives of the women who do the heavy lifting. And the way that we do that is by adding value in Rwanda. What it allows us to do is to pay them a higher premium. It also keeps a larger percentage of that money in the country. And by keeping the money in the country, what it does is it increases the GNP and the GDP. What does that mean? What it basically means is that when you look at a country and you're trying to determine, number one, what the value of that currency is in the world currency market, it really is about the balance of payment and the balance of trade. So in a situation where you have more imports than you have exports, then the currency devalues. In a situation where you have more exports than you have imports, the currency appreciates. And it appreciates against some of the stronger currencies, i.e. the dollar, the euro, the pound sterling, etc. And so this is just a drop in the bucket of what's happening in Rwanda in terms of transforming the country, not only financially, but as it relates to the lowest level of the people that grow the coffee, the farmer.
I mean, there's been a lot of talk about women strategically being placed and emphasis on the fact that women don't need to be left behind where this Africa Free Continental Trade Area is concerned and that agreement. Are you getting a sense that at least we're moving somewhere from the discussions that are being had here in terms of making sure that women are roped in and they play a critical role where this AfCFTA is concerned?
Well, if you consider the fact that I believe it's 52% of the population in Africa are women, we have contributed significantly from the very beginning. If you look at history, for example, what you will find is that the people that drive the economies in Africa from early on have been the market women. And so what we're looking at doing is, I won't say elevating, but transforming. And when I say transformation, what it means is that as women, we have evolved and we're now, some of us are moving towards trading in an international space as opposed to a local space, which really does shift the paradigm in terms of family development. Because when you look at the economies, and if you give a woman in Africa $10, that $10 will circulate in her community 8 times, whereas if you give a man $10, it'll circulate maybe once or twice before it leaves the community. So what has happened is the powers that be, the people in power in Africa, the presidents, citizens, and so on and so forth, have come to the realization that women have to be at the table. And so when we look at AfCFTA and we say, how does it work for women? The first thing that we have to realize is the woman-owned company isn't going to be as large as some of the other multinational corporations. They're going to be small enterprises. So what I've found and what I've been speaking about is that we need to come together as a group and start looking at consolidating our shipments and finding distribution points in these other countries so that we are able to compete. And what that will allow us to do is to grow organically. And by growing organically, it means that we have a very strong foundation from which we can move forward. And what that will do over time is it will allow us to bring other young women along the path.
It's extremely encouraging, Briggette. I'd like for us to leave it here for now. Coming through, of course, as the CEO of Igire Coffee. Exciting time as women really are vocal, Francis, in terms of really what they expect to see come out of this business forum here. What we can note is the fact that the Deputy President Paul Mashatile will be here later on to give the closing remarks. And this is where, of course, the Secretariat will also be giving us an update in terms of how talks have gone in these past 3 days.